Yeah, so my name's Tessa, as we said, and yes, I was at CBC for 20 years. When I first started in the radio newsroom, I was actually cutting real tape with real razor blades, and that just shows you how vastly I've seen the whole industry change so fast. And I left CBC in 2014 because I was very anxious about a dark cloud that I felt that was coming, where in the digital space, content comes to you without context. And there's no, there's no what we call in television or radio land a voiceover explaining something or a pre-bit to tell you what the thing is. It just comes at you. And I felt, as much as I believe as well that humans are, we have intellect and we have capacity to have inquiry, I felt that we have an entire generation that's coming into this space that doesn't have any context around them. So launched a company because I wanted CBC.ca to be, when you go to it, just a feed of the most relevant thing for you at this moment in time, or you at this moment in time, and they're not going to be the same. And it would be very personalized and very dedicated to understanding who the customer is, who the audience is, and what is the most important thing that needs to be looked at by that person right now. Obviously, I was very concerned about things like filter bubbles. This is before fake news, but I was worried about how I saw already that on Facebook things were starting to galvanize around people liking things. Getting more things that they like means that they only see the things that they like, which is fine, but coming at it from a public media stance or an informational citizenry democracy stance, that does not make sense. So how do you inject some of the humanity back into that? How do you engineer serendipity back into this space? I spent the first year working with my co-founder on analyzing this. How do we come at it from a different way? Is there anything we can learn from what Facebook has done to create a new way of approaching this? Because this sucks. It just sucks. You have too much information, too much stuff flying at everybody. We use technology to help us sort it, and it's wonderful to do that. But then the pendulum swings far too far. And what happens when the pendulum swings too far, we let technology decide what people should see, and then we have British national defense ads showing up in front of ISIS videos, right? Because the technology, we just assume, knows what it's doing, but it's written by people. It's also got its own biases implicitly in the original design of the systems, and there's no human check on this. So when this happened, this was last summer, there were boycotts around this in the UK because the British Department of Defense was showing ads in front of ISIS. They're paying for the enemy. It's crazy. And Google immediately is like, well, no, we're going to work on this. We're going to get engineers. We're going to solve this problem. Still, yet to this day, I guarantee you, this problem has not been solved because no one has yet cracked this. It's not a solution yet. There is no solution to say what is actually happening in a video. People can tell you, Google with 75% accuracy can tell you whether or not there's a dog in a video. Fantastic. And it can also probably tell you now with, close to that accuracy whether or not it's a golden retriever or a basset hound or whatever. But so can my 2-year-old neighbor. And you know what my 2-year-old neighbor can say is whether or not that's a funny video, a scary video, a video that they actually want to watch the next one from. That is the difference that humans actually need to be still part of this world to help make sense of it. So what's happened in the media space, particularly the media producers and creators of information, is they kind of to get reach, they paid for exposure on platforms like Facebook, and then that kicked them in the ass because then Facebook said, oh, sorry, we don't want to be a media company. We aren't a media company. And just out of the repercussions of the influence of the Russian Senate Committee and everything, Facebook has now dropped for most media companies, including the big darlings in the digital space. BuzzFeed has seen their referral traffic from Facebook drop 15% in 2017. It's anticipated to be 20% this year. And it's just going to keep going because those companies don't want to be media companies. First thing they say is they're a technology company. That's fine. Be a technology company. We got to get some way of figuring out how to engineer humanity back into these systems, though, too. And one of the biggest things that I don't really know your world very well around the advertising and the marketing side, programmatic was always perplexing to me. When I was at CBC, I was like, really? We're gonna why does that ad fire? Why did I see that? Or why does this serial ad fire on this thing that seems totally inappropriate to fire on? That's partially because most of the media companies have kind of left this to somebody else. And like, oh, they'll solve that. Google will solve that for me. I'll put this on Facebook and stuff. They've lost insight into their own audience, to their own customers. And that's massively problematic for anybody that's creating stories. I was very incented to go and start my own company because I wanted to come up with a solution, kind of like what I described, very oversimplified. At CBC, nobody could do it. So I was like, somebody's got to figure this out. Somebody's got to be sitting at the intersection of media, technology, and coming at it from a values-oriented position rather than just wanting to make bucket loads of money, which I do want to do, but not at the same time. That's not the first thing that motivates me. So we created a company. It's very much focused on curation, on content assessment, which is a huge problem, which is what computers do terribly at, and also distribution. Those are our 3 main points of focus. So we created channels. This is like the very first product we came out with was kind of like a replacement for those Outbrain and Tumula things that you see at the bottom of pages. We can make channels of content, video content, we focus on video, that align with a brand's interests and elevates time spent on a page, gets that brand being able to share content that is directly related to their interests and bring people back to their own ecosystem so that their potential customer can engage with them on their terms on their site. No fake news, it's all been human edited, it's all curated by people. We use algorithms to help us see it, to funnel the internet, but everything's been watched by a human. And then we were invited to MIT last year, around this time actually, and first to Nieman Lab to do a presentation on what we were doing, because the Canadian Media Fund had sponsored us to create a machine learning layer onto our system. It's awesome. That's one of the wonderful things about Canada, particularly in the innovation space. So much government support in building these things out. So the Nieman Foundation at Harvard invited us to come and talk about it, and they said, can you stay for the hackathon we're going to do at MIT? And I was like, no. Of course I'm going to stay for a hackathon at MIT, of course. So out of that, there was all the library science. I was in my total element, nerding out. Library scientists, people, journalists, Snopes was there. Everybody was there. Everybody was there. This is like right in the thick of the post-election stuff. And created what we call the credibility meter out of a few of us that wanted to standardize how can we make a nutrition label around pieces of content. Not to like give the Snopes approach, because the fact checking and all that stuff is really relevant, really important, but really how we think things are really going to change is when we've lifted critical thinking. So how can you create a nutrition label that follows pieces of content around? It's okay to have sugar occasionally, just know you're having sugar, and also have a balanced diet, know when you're having sugar. Built this machine learning layer on top of our system as well. If you want to nerd out and talk about this after, I'm happy to. It's awesome. I'm going to play a little video right now that our friends at ASAP Science did for us to do a little bit of the explainer of why we've done this. Anyway, so that's what we do after these guys did this. These guys have 7.5 million followers on YouTube, so they melted our servers and it kind of killed us. But we touched almost every single country in the world with the chatbot. We have people everywhere except North Korea and 9 other smaller countries that don't speak English. But that's amazing because what we've been able to do is now we have this amazing sandbox. This is what we're not motivated by advertising on our platform or like trying to sell you. We're giving it to people for free. What we're trying to do is get deep insight into how we can use this technology to understand it better, that then we white label to other organizations. So now we're moving from just doing channels with clients to actually white labeling our service to one of the largest media companies in Canada right now, which will help us to help them to get way better insight into how, on the left is what people say when they first log into the system. That's kind of like very fragmented. And then after behavior, what they actually do. And then we can go by tone, we can go by actual category of interest. And it's a phenomenal space to actually know who you're actually talking to. And that is us, and that is what we're doing, and I can't wait to talk about it more on the panel.